Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Rad Gaming Podcast. I'm Pescador.
And I'm Jemshi. And in this episode of the podcast, we discuss Microsoft and Sony's new partnership and what this could mean for the future of Xbox and PlayStation. And then we talk about how the World Health Organization has now officially recognized gaming disorder as a legitimate issue. And then we walk through our first playthrough of Dauntless, a new free-to-play game released on the Epic Game Store.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Cento Fiore. Cento Fiore is a lifestyle fashion brand that sees beauty in cultural heritage and always strives to offer timeless and elegant style. Visit cento-fiore.com to join the family. That's cento-fiori.com. So let's jump into this podcast and talk about some gaming disorder. Jemshi, do you like any of the Batman movies?
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty big fan. I wouldn't know if I would be go as far to say that I'd get any Batman tattoos, but
No Batman tattoos?
I would say that I'm a pretty big fan.
Have you seen the Joker? The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger being the Joker.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably my favorite, as probably most other Batman fans are.
Yeah. It's such a good role. I really enjoyed it. But the point of me bringing this whole thing up is, did you hear that Robert Pattinson is becoming the new Batman?
Oh, so is that confirmed now? I heard a rumor.
I saw quite a few things, and they said that they highlighted it in an article. Someone else did, and said that this was actually coming to fruition. So from what I've read, it seems like it's going to happen, because I think Warner Brothers has in there's a new Batman movie coming out down the road, and then the whole thing about Robert Pattinson actually being Batman in the new trilogy is something that's been floating around. But I think that they said that they believe it to be true. So I don't know how I feel about that.
I feel pretty excited about that, only in the fact that because he's the actor that played Edward from Twilight, the vampire romantic love story movie
saga, yeah.
And everyone would always say, as for me in high school, that they'd be like, oh my god, you look just like him. So now I can be like, hey, I look just like Batman.
Yeah,
that's a transition that I would like to have, where someone's like, oh hey, I see this guy and he looks just like Batman. That's better than oh, you look like the guy from Twilight, which was a pro and a con, because he's like a teenage heartthrob. So it's okay, well,
teenage heartthrob.
Which one would I rather be? No,
I just don't know about so Christian Bale was awesome as Batman. I think he did a really good job. He got in shape for it. But I don't know. Robert Pattinson in my mind, and I've seen they had a photo of him shirtless, of course, as they always do for these kind of things. And he looked really scrawny. It didn't seem like he could be a real Batman figure. I want to see him, if he's going to play Batman, I want to see him bulk up.
Jacked to just...
Oh, yeah. You've seen Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt, he used to play on Parks and Rec. Dude was, I wouldn't say out of shape, but he was not fit. I mean, he was kind of on the borderline of being semi-fit and not overweight, but chubby, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
He was in that.
I remember that.
But then he went and did Guardians of the Galaxy, and he got ripped. He got real big. I'm telling you, man, the whole transition is amazing.
His character in the Parks and Rec was supposed to be just kind of like a bum.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be his, that was why he was even cast in that role, because they're oh, you kind of fit, you got the body type for a bum. And then I guess he became a lovable actor, and then he was hey, let's try to do this whole movie thing, and started to. I mean, I'm sure I don't know his whole acting history, but I think he became a movie star.
He
now.
Was in,
he's in Jurassic World.
Yeah, Jurassic World. I was going to say that actually.
Yeah, I think maybe one other. Oh, he was in that one movie that I think people were kind of. I think I had mixed reviews, but I can't remember what it is. But it's supposed to be that it's a space travel.
Oh yeah, he's
a movie where you
Jennifer Lawrence. Yes.
Yeah,
I actually saw it. It wasn't bad.
Another planet. Yeah, I don't know what's really bad. I only saw the preview.
What was it called? I don't remember, but I did see it. It was pretty good. I just don't remember the name of it. Huh? I don't remember, but it wasn't bad. I actually liked it. It was kind of creepy in a sense.
I think that was the thing that some people said, that there was I don't know. Like, I can't remember, but it was just like that might have been what it was. But I think it was just interesting that.
Do you think that it was because people thought it was creepy that it was bad?
I don't know what it's about. I thought it was just like a guy, and then they both wake up and they're stuck. Because I feel like there's a bunch of people. I'll just explain from what I know, because I won't have any spoilers. Because I just watched the trailer when I was at the movie theater. There's like a spaceship that has like a bunch of people in like a deep sleep, so that way that they're all like the travel from one planet to another is so long that they're all in a deep sleep. Yeah. And that way so they can all live the travel. Yeah. And then two people end up waking up, and it's Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah. And then they're kind of like, well, what do? We've both woken up from our deep sleep, and we're now traveling across the like space. You know, what are we going to do with all our free time together? You know, and I think that's all I know about it.
It's a really interesting concept. I kind of liked it. I mean, there's some parts in between there that become like kind of creepy-ish or weird in a sense. But I mean, I liked it just because the story was a little different from what you're used to, you know. But I don't want to ruin it for anyone that wants to see it. I know it's been out for a while. I don't want to kind of give it spoilers. I don't like giving spoilers. It's not my thing, but it wasn't bad. I'd highly check. I would recommend checking it out. It's actually pretty good. But the point that I actually also wanted to talk about was being fit for like big roles, superhero roles. I don't know if we're going to be seeing that anymore, man. I mean, the Avengers is kind of winding down, and DC Comics, I mean, they're not really hitting it off.
Yeah, I think DC Comics, from how I see it, is that like their standalone movies are really good. Like you can go and you watch it and it's cool, but I think they don't have like the Marvel Universe aspect to it where like everything seems interconnected. It seems like whenever they start playing into that with DC, it doesn't seem like it works.
Well, I got the kind of vibe.
Justice League wasn't.
Yeah, well, the vibe I got in general from it was more or less, it was more serious at first, and then they realized that that wasn't really working for them, so they tried to throw in some funny like aspect or humor to it. And I don't know. I just don't feel like it really works for them. The way that they film their videos is a little bit darker, but they have like some comedy in it, and I don't feel like that really settles well. I mean, it doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I'm sure they're trying to catch up to where Marvel's at, but I think Marvel also kind of probably that's who you were talking about, DC, right?
Yes. Sorry, I should have specified.
Yeah, I was like, I should have said that before I started making assumptions and going off. And you're
no,
like,
you're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking because Marvel has like the head start because I think they started doing like I know that they had like Superman, Batman movies, and that was kind of it. I think with the Avengers and everything, they sort of had like the dark, grainy, like oversaturated dark colors or something. I think that's the term that they use.
I think they try to just play to Batman's strength though. That was all his like. The darkness, like, you know what I mean? Like, that was all the Batman movies and the Christian Bale hits. They're all dark, and I think that's why they were trying to, like, maybe play off of that. Kind of like, oh, this was, like, dark satire kind of, and they did really well. Maybe we'll do the same. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like they aren't taking the... Like, I know with Shazam, I think they really did a good job on, like, instead of like trying to make it match the whole theme of like all the other Avengers and everything, like all the movies kind of have the same theme. Like I think they finally decided to go, okay, well, let's just take Shazam and make it its own movie. Yeah, like kind of try to do it's like make sure that it stands alone. It's great. It's not trying to base the fact that it was similar to this style or.
Yeah, I didn't see Shazam, so was it good? I don't know.
I think it was really good. There's like one moment where as like a physics perspective, I'm like. That wouldn't have worked, but otherwise.
Oh, you're that movie critic that just like, no, I don't.
Well,
no,
it's not gonna work. Where like I was like, when it happens, you're just like, wait, you're gonna think this too, like physics. You're gonna be like, oh, well, that's gonna really suck, and then suddenly it's just like, oh,
yeah, well, that doesn't make sense.
I don't know without ruining it, but there's like it's like in the middle of the movie, so it's not even like related to the end. The end was pretty cool. See, I think the thing with DC, I think. With the jokes they had in Shazam were a lot better because I don't know if you know the superhero Shazam at all, like his origin story.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. I don't. I didn't really follow DC that much. I was more of a Marvel person.
I can probably leave that at that and have you go watch that.
I will actually.
With that in mind, I think it's a lot better because I knew about who Shazam was and how it worked, like the whole, like I don't want to explain anything beyond that. I mean, so vague. I know this is probably awful for the listeners. So I'd be like, he's vaguely explaining Shazam without.
Hey man, I don't know it, and I'm happy you didn't give it because I honestly I saw a trailer, but I didn't really understand the concept because I wasn't really paying much attention. I was doing something else, and I saw the trailer. I was like, I'll watch this, and then I was doing something else and I kind of didn't really see what it was. I'm like, this doesn't look bad. I mean, I'll go see it probably. Maybe when it comes out on Netflix or something like that, but I won't go out in the movies and see it. But it looks good. It looked good. I heard it was good.
For me, so did you see Black Panther?
I'm going to be 100% honest. I did not, but I heard it was amazing.
I was going to help explain this movie by explaining it through Black Panther has a really great story, and those who have seen it will know exactly what. Yes, so it's a great story, and I felt that like Shazam really took that element where they made sure the story was good, and then you understood everything had a motive.
I have homework then. I guess I got to watch Black Panther and Shazam. Is Shazam still in theaters right now?
It might be. I think it's been out for a while.
Yeah, that's what I know it has been.
It might have been phased out. I know that
it's been a big deal. I'll find it one day. It's somewhere.
Yeah. So let's move on to one of our first topics in gaming news.
Yeah.
So we have Microsoft and Sony. So Microsoft is the maker of Xbox.
Yes.
And Sony is the maker of PlayStation.
Of course.
So Microsoft and Sony have just announced that they have a partnership, which is already crazy. In the sense that,
my mind is already blown, but go on, please.
Right. So from the gaming perspective, people see them as the rivals in PlayStation versus Xbox,
Yeah, of course.
But this partnership is to help help explore their cloud gaming ventures. So it's kind of interesting because you're like, well, why would Microsoft do this when they're partnering with Sony? They've got their own thing. Why would they even share this with someone else? But then you have to realize is cloud gaming requires servers. So how cloud works is that you're not the cloud. It's not actually just it goes off somewhere and it just magically works.
Of course,
there's actually a big, huge warehouse that has a bunch of servers.
I'm assuming that Microsoft they own all these servers that Sony is going to use.
Yeah. So, but you have to think that so there's different cloud services out there, and the three big players in cloud right now are Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So there you go. One of the key players is Microsoft. But the thing is, Amazon has 63% of the market share in cloud. So so with cloud,
I get what you're going with this. Okay.
Yeah. So with cloud, you're okay, well, 63% of all cloud services, anything that you use is on the cloud, maybe email or I don't even know, literally a website like Twitter, in Amazon or Facebook. They all use Amazon cloud services to host their websites, their apps, and everything, and all that kind of stuff. So and then I think with this venture, Sony is also trying to explore different avenues with cloud services with AI. There's AI cloud services and stuff like that. And then obviously the cloud gaming.
Yeah.
So how I see this going down is that, so Sony was looking for a cloud service, and they had to choose probably most likely they were choosing between, Google, Amazon, or Microsoft.
Yeah, of course.
And I think Microsoft probably saw, because I'm assuming that even though they know that they're a competitor, they're just we have to see if there's, some kind of deal. Because if you're a big company, they can cut you deals. Okay, your service is a little bit less cheaper.
Yeah.
But now you're using us, and you could be, because Microsoft is trying to play catch up. They're trying to come back and catch up to where Amazon is at. They've got, I think it was only 10 to 20%.
I was just saying it has to be very small because I use Google for Google Photos, and it's all you know what I mean? I use a ton of Google things.
Yeah, so I think it's supposed to be Amazon and then Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and then Google. So Microsoft and Google.
Microsoft will be really high up there though.
I think
second
so.
Probably.
Yeah, so I think Microsoft was the second highest used at 20%, and Google was at 10. I think I remember that correctly.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
That already kind of started to cut out Google so the thing that I think with this partnership that also helps is that they're saying that they're focusing a lot on cloud gaming. So there's cloud computing and servers are hosted on this cloud service, right?
Yeah.
So now if Sony partners with Microsoft, these servers are going to be overloaded with a lot of games, because then you got all Xbox games are probably using the servers. All PlayStations are now using these servers.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if this partnership is going to make the Microsoft, because it's called Microsoft Azure is the name of the actual cloud service. So I'm thinking Azure is going to be the go-to for gaming on the cloud, So like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that like if you've got two,
if they have the infrastructure down.
they do. That's the thing is that.
But I mean, like with the load that Sony's going to be bringing over, I mean, that's a ton of things that's going to be, you know, utilizing or using their servers for. That's a lot.
Yeah, but I think how you have to understand with cloud services is that it's you pay for what you use. So if there's ever a time that, you know, Sony isn't like, let's say there's like a game going on and that server is being hosted up, but there's like maybe 5 minutes of downtime. While that's down, it can host like maybe something else that's somebody else like that's not.
Well, yeah, and it does. It's
so like, yeah, I know what you're saying, but like they try to optimize how much time is being used, but they are constantly trying to grow, and I think that's why Microsoft was like, hey, if we partner with Sony, we have a reason to grow because we know that we'll make profits off of this.
Yeah,
but I can see it becoming like the main player in game, you know, computing on the cloud.
Yeah,
because they'll be the ones that have the most data on cloud gaming and like other gaming services, that it becomes the one that everyone has to use, you know, for games.
And I wonder if it's going to open up a nice opportunity for Sony and Xbox to have more cross-platform gaming.
I actually really hope that that's the case. I mean,
because you know it never really used to. They never used to do that stuff in the past. And yeah, they have stuff that like, for instance, and we'll talk about this. I want to talk about this next. But Dauntless, they have people from PlayStation, Xbox, and computer all playing on the same servers. So you can play with you know, someone from Xbox, someone from, you know, PlayStation, which you're starting to see that more and more. But in the past, Xbox and PS4 or PS3, anything with the PlayStation in general. Yeah, they wouldn't play with each other.
And how Dauntless achieves that. So the game makers for Dauntless have to have their own servers. They don't use Xbox servers. They don't use PlayStation. They have to have their own servers. And that's the thing that I'm saying is that those people that now need to have their own servers, they have to go look who are they going to go to? Amazon, Google, or Microsoft? If Microsoft is the main
so who does Epic Games use then? Because Dauntless was bought by Epic Games because this company, they brought him in there.
I'm not sure.
If I remember correctly, actually, if that is the case.
I don't know. Let me see if I can even look. See Epic Games. Because the thing is, they can also have their own servers that they have themselves. Like that's also another option that they can use. But I think a lot of people are starting to move towards cloud services because it's a lot cheaper.
But then I guess I give maybe a bad example when I say Dauntless, because I know that Fortnite did the same thing, and Fortnite you're able to play with everybody. So that's the thing. Like maybe they're utilizing the same server set. I don't know. I don't know how that works, to be honest. I never really looked into it.
Yeah. So I looked up and it says that Epic Games has gone with Amazon.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Well, then I'm assuming Dauntless uses Amazon as well. I'm assuming.
So that's like it just makes sense. Like, because you would think that if it's bought out, it's probably like they must have been like, oh, this is easy to train. Because that's the thing. They don't just buy out games just because it's a good game. They have to also know, is this something we can, like, because if they want to move everything to the same server and everything like that, that they would probably look into that as like, is that a cost that we're going to have to look into for these games? Because that means like there's server downtime. So, but yeah, I can see that Epic Games being on Amazon AWS, that's actually something that, because AWS is the Amazon cloud.
Yes.
Thing. For those that may not be familiar. So I can see that with Epic Games having Fortnite on there. Cause I see the article come up where like the Amazon's like, hey, our success story on how Fortnite ran off of, you know.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Because the thing with the cloud service is that it's supposed to expand and shrink based on user like.
There's no limits to it, basically.
Yeah, there's no limit. So like with Fortnite growing at like an exponential rate, they were able to use Amazon to help like keep up with that rate. And they were like, they were like, oh, if Epic Games hadn't gone with Amazon, that they probably couldn't have kept up, and Fortnite wouldn't have been as successful as it was. So that I find that actually kind of interesting. That's a good use case for cloud, you know, computing and stuff like that. So I'm sure
Microsoft had to undercut them. They're like, hey, use our cloud service, you get, you know, quite a bit of discount.
I can see that because you got to think like as a Microsoft as a business, they make money, you know, from Windows, but they also make money from like other services that they sell. Like they tried to go into the mobile phones, which I don't know anybody. I only know one person who's ever had a mobile phone, and it was my sister, or a Windows phone. It was my sister, and she didn't have that phone for very long.
Yeah,
and I think even my brother might have had one too, But I remember that they didn't have the phone for very long because I think they were like, yeah, the reason they didn't like it is that there wasn't as many like apps, and then if they wanted to play like a game or something, it wasn't like compatible. Like they were like, oh,
Yeah,
I just
it
wanted to
was
like
rough.
play some. I wanted to just play a fun game, you know. Like yes, Snapchat and everything would work, but like they were like, oh, I just want to play, you know, I don't know, some like Farmville or something. It might not be made for the Windows Phone, and they're like, well,
Yeah, well,
You know.
different operating system. No.
but I guess that would be a good option if you want to buy a phone that doesn't have games available for it, so that you now.
Yeah. But actually, I want to kind of make this transition to talking about Dauntless, because I know we were talking about Dauntless. We actually got a chance to play it over this weekend, which
Yeah,
was
we did.
extremely fun. I had enjoyed myself. You had a little bit of a bad luck spell to start off one of the hunts, right?
Like, of course it would be me.
Yeah.
So go ahead and explain kind of what Dauntless is so that they can understand
okay.
what problems I came into from just trying to do this.
What Dauntless is it's a online game. It's free to play. And what you can do, you play with other people from different systems. You can play for people with Xbox, PlayStation, or computer. And it's like a Monster Hunter game. You go in there, you get gear, and you level up your weapons and your armor to kind of play off what monsters you're going. So, say if you go in and fight a fire-type monster, or they call them behemoths in Dauntless. So if you're fighting a fire-type behemoth, you actually should switch to a fire-type armor to make it repel fire, obviously. And then you use a type of weapon that it's subject to, so frost. They use frost to fight fire because, you know, everything has its counteractive part.
Like the element, kind of like the Pokemon with their advanced rocket
exactly.
scissors, kind of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and with that, each behemoth is its own hunt, and that's like its own like game to load into. So you like Pescador and I would be like, hey, let's go on a hunt together. Let's wait for the server to like pick us up, and we're joining this server to now go on a hunt with, you know, maybe 2 other people that are online, and we're all playing against the behemoth. So we're all a team.
Yeah.
So what happened with me is I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, let me just jump in. I played the tutorial because I think you have to play that before you can really get into anything else.
Yeah.
So I played the tutorial. And then we jumped into like our first hunt. Pescador had already kind of done a couple, and he was like, "This is already great. This is fun." And I was like, ready to play. And the one thing that you have to understand is that the terrain in these games is that you're on like these floating islands. And I didn't realize this, so I was like, "Oh, I'll jump off this cliff, go down, and you know, go towards the behemoth or whatever." And I jump off the cliff, realizing that I actually just jumped off the actual island, like the cloud island, itself.
Yep.
So I fell down. And I was like, oh, shoot, I died. And I realized that if you fall off, they actually respawn you back up on top of the cliff, which is actually great. I mean, that's what should have happened for me. But instead, they just kept spawning me like at the same like spot off the island. So I wasn't even spawning on the island anymore. I would just spawn and I'd fall all the way to my death and just kind of respawn. And then
keep on going.
over, they're like, hey, are you going to come over here and fight the behemoth with us? And I'm just like, dude, I literally like jump in 10 seconds of the game, jump off the cliff to go down. Cause like you start off kind of on like a path. And I'm kind of one of those people where I kind of don't want to take.
He wants to go off the beaten path. He's he's a hipster.
I wanted to explore. Like if I go the, you know, regular path, it's probably not going to be as exciting as if I go like kind of see like how in depth is this game, how detailed, and kind of what else is around on the map.
Oh, I don't blame you.
It's like I probably wouldn't have got to the behemoth right away because you have in this game you have in the hunt when you're looking for you have to look for the behemoth. You don't know where he is at first, so you kind of run around. And I was like, well, I'll go this way, you know, kind of like maybe the regular path isn't going to be the direct way to get to him because it was a higher level behemoth than what I was, you know, because I was playing with Pescador who'd already played a couple of games.
Yeah.
So that was already frustrating enough to have an entire first round, and then you get ranked, and I got like the lowest rank possible. While our entire overall team score was like an S+ or something, which is like one of the best you can get ranks. I was like, wow,
S++, but whatever. Who's counting?
Yeah, S++. Yeah.
Someone got dragged down because of somebody else falling off the map the entire time.
Yeah, so I don't know. And I didn't get anything. So because I did absolutely nothing the entire game, I had like nothing. Because you're like, oh, cool, let me go buy some stuff and like do all this. And I was like, I literally have nothing because I didn't do anything this entire time. And but after that, I did have an okay time. I think it was just me trying to figure out how to, like, I think there's a lot of like interactions in the game where like I feel like it's not explained as well for someone that may not be as familiar.
They had a story behind it, and I did enjoy it. I mean, I don't want to ruin it because it's right off the bat. You'll see it as soon as you start playing this game. It's free to play, so why not give it a shot if you like Monster Hunter? But they gave a really good background story about it, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was fun. I liked it. I mean, like collecting there's orbs you can put it into weapons and armor, and you have to. What's cool is you have to break parts off of the behemoth in order for you to change that into armor. So like if you need a horn, you need to go swing at its face and then knock the horn off, and then you get that part.
Yeah, I thought that was actually pretty cool. Is that they actually implement like if you want to cut its tail off, that actually can happen, which I find actually really interesting. Like, and each behemoth is different. Like, some may not have tails or something. But like,
I'm not gonna lie, I love to cut off the tail.
Yeah, but that's the thing where like I find that actually really interesting with the game, that it's like a kind of like a dynamic game. Like, I think like obviously they might have like some sort of, like, you probably can't cut off everything individually, but and it's actually not like gory or anything either. It's just kind of like, oh, the tail fell off or something, which I actually kind of enjoy a little bit. So it's like sometimes I think games try to go a little too overboard, where even if maybe overboard is realistic, that might be for me. Realistically, tail getting cut off might be too overboard for me, but I like that it just like falls off and then the tail just sits there. Like the thing, like it's not like the game where like, oh, it fades away and it disappears. Like the tail's just still there, which I find actually really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like the game. It gets very complicated later on. Like, I'm gonna botch the names of the type. I think it was like there was obviously fire and ice,
and then there was a wind guy. Wind and then earth.
Well, it was earth technically. It was like Terra, I think it's called, and then there was, what was the other one in the beginning? Oh, electric, or yeah, it was electric. I don't remember what it's called. Electric. Boogie Woogie Woogie. Oh my god, I got stuck. That's a stupid song in my head. Anyway, yeah. But later on, there's Radiant, I think it is. It's like light, and that guy was shocked to me when I played him. He crushed me. It was like some kind of rhinoceros that shoots like light out of like all these like crazy things. It was tough, but later on, I can't remember the name of it. It's like Dark Matter or something, but I don't remember the name of it. And there was this like cat that goes like in and out of portals and puts you in a dark, like transports you to a dark like
a shadow world, maybe?
Yeah, shadow world. I couldn't think of the word. Thank you. But yeah, it was really creepy. Like take you out of the actual world that you're in, put you in a shadow world, and it would come out of these portals and like destroy you, and then like jump right back into the portal. So like it swipe you, go right back in. It was the most obnoxious thing. Like I got so frustrated with it, but I enjoyed it. The only issue though, besides the weird parts about holding E, so like when you go around and collect resources from the island that you're on, you holding E sometimes didn't work.
Yeah, the E key.
Yeah, it would. You hold down. Oh, sorry, for a computer, I guess it is. But when you gather resources on the computer, I don't know about the other systems like the consoles. But if you held in E to gather the resources like minerals, it wouldn't always work, and it would just fill up. And usually, when it fills up, you collect that resource, but it would fill up and just stay there, and still like kind of leave you hanging and not pick up anything. And you have to change your position a little bit.
Yeah, because
to get to work.
Like the timer you're talking about, like it takes like 3 seconds or something.
Something
for you
like that, yeah.
Something you have to wait for that timer to complete for you to actually pick it up, like to make it realistic. Like, okay, you can't just run by and pick something up. You have to actually sit there. And that was the thing that I think that was my first experience. Like, okay, I got something, and then I come into the main like lobby area, and I wanted to talk to people, and then like nothing would happen. Oh, I think my only other thing is that there's a lot of like obviously there's ways that they have to like make money in the game, but I think there was a lot of like things where it was like, oh, can't do this because you didn't pay for the
there's a lot
pass. Oh, you can't do this because it takes 24 hours, or you can speed it up.
They have the hunting pass, which is like, every other thing in the world. They always try to find ways to get you to spend money, but it's understandable. I mean, they got to make money. They got to do what they got to do.
So I think that was like for me where I was having not actually played an actual hunt yet, and then trying to be like, okay, well, I'll look around the lobby while we're waiting for, us to join a hunt. I'll look and see what's around, and then realizing that because I didn't actually play a hunt, I didn't have any money like in the game to buy anything. So I was like, oh, well, everything's hindered by the fact that I don't have a pass or anything. But I actually thought the game was really enjoyable. Like you said, like each behemoth was different, or there's different types of behemoths. And that they're always adding to the game too. Like that's the one thing I like about games nowadays, is that there's always an update, which is the crazy thing with gaming that I think I would have never fathomed. I mean, I think as a kid, I probably thought it'd be really cool. We're like, oh, I really like. I always thought that games were just like these unlimited, kind of like playground, like or sandbox games, or like I just had to know the cheat code to unlock this thing to happen. Like I was like, oh, I'm sure there's a cheat code for it. I just don't know it yet.
The good old days of cheat codes, yeah.
Yeah, like back when cheat codes were a thing. And that's one thing I think I really miss about games is that like, and now it's like, oh, Easter eggs or something, but like anything that's like, there's never anything useful that you find a cheat code for. Yeah. Like it's always like, oh, it's a paywall or something. I think that's what I really liked about the games back in the day, where you're like, oh, you just like find a cheat code online, you come into the game, and oh, Banjo-Kazooie, his head is big now.
Yeah, that was the best part. I remember I used to play Grand Theft Auto all the time, and I remember it's R1, R2, L1, R2, left down, right up, guns. I don't know. I remember that one off the top of my head because I love that cheat code. It's bad, but yeah. No,
I was the troll where I played with my friends, or not my friends, my siblings. We'd have like the cheat codes book or whatever, and I would just write fake cheat codes into the book and see like just to like be that person where I was like, oh, like super fast speed or something, and then like super fast speed for Smash Bros or something, and then I like see my brothers like rough. They were like. Because I remember my brother, he was like, these cheat codes are trash. Like, what?
Where'd you get them from? What website?
Yeah, he was like, these don't even work. Like, this is so dumb.
That's the days that we used to like go on a website and write them down. I remember those the old days. I had like pamphlets of stuff. It was bad.
That was always like the like appendix on like the walkthroughs for games. There was always like the cheat code section.
But before we get off topic and go into something else, I want to bring up one last fact about Dauntless. I'm really gonna regret saying this, but I sat waiting to be. I was put in a queue to start playing this game. I was 52,000th in queue, and I actually sat there and let the whole queue expire, and I got to play finally.
How long did that take? I know that happened too, and I just ended up having to quit because I sat there for like a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm done. No, I ended up sitting there probably for about a good 25 minutes. Well, I didn't sit. Let me be clear. I didn't sit there and look at the screen and be like, you know what? I'm gonna wait for this thing. No, I went and did something else, and I came back, and I was like a couple thousand away, and then I sat and then watched the rest of it tick down, and then I went in. But they addressed that situation, and I think they're supposedly pushed something out to help with that issue. I haven't seen it since that day, so I think that they got that addressed the issue and fixed that. So I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, like we said, if they're using Amazon services, they should be able to scale accordingly, you know? So I think that was probably a bug where someone probably thought, like, we'll never get to that point, so why not just, like, let's limit it in case some bug... Because the thing is, if there's, like, they probably go, what if there's a bug that spans a bunch of servers and no one's in them? That's a bunch of money we're wasting. So they probably put a limit on it.
Probably.
That's the one funny thing that I find with games is that they always seem to underestimate the success of their own game.
Yeah, sometimes they limit themselves.
Which I actually find that's actually really nice to think that like, oh, they didn't expect this game to do well. It's almost like a really rewarding thing for those developers. Like it'd be like Call of Duty, like, oh yeah, they know it's going to do well, but like there's other games like, oh, we're trying something different. We don't really know if this is going to be a game people want to play, and then they kind of like, you know, try it out, and then it does really well, and they're like, whoa, we gotta tone this back a bit.
But it might have been the fact that there's a lot of people probably not playing with groups, and they're playing by themselves. You can do a hunt by yourself, so maybe that might have been the cause of it. Like a ton of people were just doing single ones, taking up us like a part of a server. I don't know, but maybe they underestimated that amount of people.
I'm not sure how that whole thing worked, but if they're able to fix it, it must not have been that.
No,
it must have been like that's what I'm thinking. It must have been like a simple limit cap where they're like, okay, let's change it to this or something.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Because you do have like, even if you use cloud servers, you can only have a certain number of them, and I think they probably had to maybe go talk to like Amazon, like, hey, can we like increase our limit? You know, because that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
So I want to move on to our next topic. If you feel like you've covered everything from
yeah, I think it did.
All right. So this is the one that I find. We've brought it up a couple times, but I think this is probably the most interesting topic for today, is that the gaming disorder is now an officially recognized disorder by the WHO, which is the World Health Organization.
Really?
Yeah. And I have the list here because they now have the symptoms for what the definition of gaming disorder is.
I am interested.
So now we have like, first it's always like, oh, they're addicted to games, but like, what actually defines like
Please.
addiction to games now? So
stop stalling. I want to know. Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
All right, let's dive into it. So here's the definition. I'm going to read from the beginning. Let's go. So gaming disorder is characterized by a pattern of persistent or recurrent gaming behavior. And then they have digital gaming or video gaming, which may be online or offline, manifested by 1, impaired control over gaming, which is, like an onset or frequency. I'm guessing that means like there's other studies and stuff that people are having like their fingers hurt and stuff like that. I'm gonna guess that's probably no, that's not impaired control over gaming. Oh, so yeah, that's a weird term. I'm cutting this part. Okay.
Okay.
So by 1, impaired control over gaming, it's either onset, or characterized by like onset, frequency, intensity, duration, termination, context. So we'll dive into that afterwards. 2, increased priority given to gaming to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other life interests and daily activities. And then finally, 3, continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. The behavioral pattern is of sufficient severity to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning.
See, I don't agree with the last one because, I mean, let's be honest, man. The only way I met you is actually through gaming. And I find that as a social aspect. I don't see that to... You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a social aspect to gaming. And I think that they overlook that very quickly.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that they might be thinking social as of offline social interactions. That might be the thing they're looking at. But that we'll have to come back to that particular point because I do have another point to bring up that I thought would be interesting. So with let's go to impaired control over gaming, which is I guess they cannot control their own, urge to play games.
Yeah.
I think that's, how much of that is like, I guess like, what would you consider impaired control? Because they didn't really put like a hard line on that, but that is a definite sign of addictive gaming where like when they come home, the first thing they want to do is play video games. And I've been there as a kid, but I think I definitely know my limits where I'm like, I really got things I got to get going. I can't really play another game or anything or like another round.
I don't know how I'd agree with this. Just I agree to some people that take precedence. Like they really, all they do is game. And I can understand that, but that's a very tough one. Like you said, there is no line, and where they draw that line. I mean, technically there's times I played Fallout 4 and I got hooked on that game. I would not stop playing it, but what would constitute that behavior and where would they draw that line?
Well, let's also think about it this way. Would you say that in that period of time, would you say that you had gaming disorder? Is gaming disorder something that's permanent or temporary?
That's a good point. I think that it depends on the individual. I mean, if they have an addictive personality, I think there's like people have addictive personalities that like some things really stick with some other people, while others don't have that same kind of thing. Like you said that you're able to sort out your own life. You're like, oh man, I need to do this today. Well, I can't game. Some people can't go and do that. So I guess that would apply to some people, but not others. So I don't know. It's tough to say.
Well, like I said, like when I was a kid, the first thing that I would do when I come home is play video games. Like perhaps I had gaming disorder, like in this definition. And I find that, that makes sense. Like, I guess it wasn't, there's probably different levels of gaming disorder also where like, I also had probably parents that were like, because my parents always had the rule where I could only play video games for half an hour.
But would the same apply if it was a hobby though? So like if you got home and say that you enjoyed, I don't know, what hobbies are there?
Like playing guitar, music?
Yeah. would they say that there's a musical disorder that you get home and all you want to do is play music? All you want to do is just do music. Like, what makes gaming so different?
Too, where I'm like, all I want to do is play guitar.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is it's tough to say that one specific hobby is a disease or a disorder as compared to another one. So like, what's the difference between someone that's really enjoys, I don't know, playing music, like guitar?
Like with music, it's the perception of it. Like whenever you practice music a lot and you get really, you become talented, it's like a respected thing where they're like, wow, like you're really great. But when like, I don't think video games really has that view on, like the social view on it is if you play a lot of video games, it's like, well, they don't always view you as a talented individual, you know, like it doesn't, well, you can be, like that's the thing, is you can be, but a lot of people kind of view it as like, oh, well, you're just playing a hobby, or you know, you're just playing for fun, which people do, but it doesn't come with that. I guess it's not as respected as much, you know, because I think it's one of those things that hasn't been around as long.
Yeah,
like you said, like my parents played, Atari, and like that was different because it was like kind of like a, I wouldn't say it was a great, like compared to now, like getting addicted to those games would probably be like, oh, well, now that I think about it, my mom did tell me that my grandpa was like a rage quitter from playing Atari.
Really? So, what, did you slam down the joystick? That little, like a little, what is that little?
I think from what my mom would explain is that he got very verbal. And
don't we all, though?
Some things that I don't really, I'll say that in fear of being inaccurate in what he said. That's my reason for not saying what he said, but but I do think that with gaming disorder, there have also been other concerns with gaming, not just in that they're addicted to gaming, is that there's other like injuries that come up from like professional gamers where it's like, eye strain, because they're looking at the screen for extended periods of time, which is not a very natural occurrence for most people. We're kind of humans, and we're used to being outside in the sun, and we're looking at the sunlight, which is something that our eyes have kind of become accustomed to, not something that's from a screen.
Tell it to cataracts, man. People get cataracts all the time for looking at the sun. So,
well,
yeah, I'm just messing with you.
I don't know. Like I guess there's a like that's like you said. Like it's like, oh well, if you're in the sun for too long, maybe that would be the case.
I get what you're saying. It makes sense.
Yeah, but I think there's also other things like, holding a controller. As much as we like to think that controllers are very like comfortable in our hands, they find that they're actually not. Like it's your hands are moving in ways that aren't natural, like completely. For like your thumbs are moving and applying pressure in ways that aren't like your thumb wasn't made for it. Your thumb is made to oppose your fingers and hold things. And like maybe like small, like intricate movements aren't things that our hands are naturally, made for. So I think that there's to be like like hand strains and stuff. And then there's also like the fatigue where it's definitely like, as much as you like to think that they're just sitting there and playing, there's a lot of brain activity going on. And I think there's also like a lot of fatigue that goes on. And to combat that, a lot of gamers have been like, sponsored by Red Bull, like speaking of like Ninja and stuff, like energy drinks and high caffeine,
like Monster,
doses and stuff to stay focused on the game. And I think there's even people taking is it Ritalin?
Yeah,
the whichever one that helps people. It's like a drug that helps you focus.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be 100% honest though. I mean, if you think about it, I know that individuals during college, and I didn't do it, but I know individuals would, if they had a big exam coming, they would actually take Ritalin to focus for the big exam because they had so much to study for. They needed to make sure they focused just on that. People would take Ritalin to focus on that. So I'm just saying, I'm not constituting the use of it, but I'm just saying
it's another use of or abuse of that drug.
Correct. Yes,
and I think that's like one thing that I think like. That's like actually a good example that we can put into. So what that kind of puts your body into a very unnatural state because it's kind of like artificially modifying yourself to be more focused. And that's something that your body's not used to. And just without going too deep into it, whenever you take drugs or you eat unhealthy for long periods of time, your body becomes accustomed to what is coming into your body.
Oh, yeah.
And it starts adapting to that intake. And suddenly when you're like, okay, well, now I'm done playing video games, I'm going to like not, eat, I'm going to eat healthier and stuff, like your body's like, whoa, this is too different. That's why a lot of people have hard time like losing weight, is because they instantly shift to this new healthy diet and your body's like, no. I'm not eating this. And then that's why it's so hard, because your body's like, nope. I'm waiting for that, sugary, or carb loaded food.
That was got that crash, right? Like when they start doing the new diet, the kind of like the coma that you have.
Your body's not used to like, how do I function? Because it doesn't know like how to, it has to adapt on like getting,
doesn't know how to process what you're actually giving it. So
right. So that's what I'm thinking with like these people taking a lot of caffeine and or other methods to stay focused while gaming. I think that actually has a lot of that's potentially going to lead to a lot of negative side effects for these gamers. And like if you're staying up late, that's affecting your sleep habits. I think that's another thing that is like different from physical sports as opposed to esports, is that physical sports, your body eventually goes, I am way too tired to play, I'm going to take a rest. But when you're gaming, the physical aspect really isn't there as much, so you can play for longer periods of time. And that's like something you never hear of a basketball player like, I couldn't get him off the court, he played all night, like just practicing his free throw. Like, I don't think anyone's ever heard of a single story. And if you've ever heard it, it's always been like, oh, they stayed like an extra hour at practice. It's never been like they stayed all night. Because if they stayed all night, you're like, well, he probably didn't make any of his shots then.
Yeah. So what I'm curious to hear is more or less the fact that every single time that there's some kind of disorder or disease, they usually have some kind of ailment or I guess something to combat that specific thing. So what do they have in plans to combat this? Is there anything that you read from that article? Because I'm interested to see, and it might be something we can talk about in the next podcast, but I'm actually interested to see, like, are they going to come out with some type of medication that's gonna, like, I don't know how they would actually monitor that or use medication to stop that from happening, but like, what do they say to combat this disorder? I mean,
it doesn't really go into any of that. It's just like the doctors kind of going in like, oh, well, if you stream for, as a career, like a part-time job, full-time job, like that's not gaming disorder because, like you're doing it with like the purpose as like, a career. Like that's even saying like, playing music all the time. Like if you're doing it as like a career, I guess like it's not really a disorder.
I'm just saying in my opinion, it all comes back to personalities. Everything can be addictive to certain individuals. But I mean, for them to lump everything together, like people taking Ritalin and things like that, I mean, like look at baseball players. Some people used to take steroids or performance enhancing drugs, PEDs. Like, doesn't mean they all do it. Some people do it just to make themselves better at the game, whatever, what have you. But like, for this whole mess of things to come out, I feel like there's no gray line to draw, and it's very tough to come out and diagnose these individuals that have it. Like, I like to see a clear-cut case. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's clear-cut cases that have gaming disorder. People are so addicted they don't want to do anything else but play games, and they will not have anything else but that, like day in and day out. I'm sure there's people like that. I love to see it just because I like to understand where they're going to draw that line.
So coming back to that original point you had where you said that, is gaming really an antisocial activity? Like there's a social aspect as well.
Yeah.
I actually saw that there was a study that was shown that people actually go play video games to socialize.
Yes.
Like that is actually that's how they socialize. And that they actually say that Facebook and like other social media platforms are kind of on a decline due to the fact that everyone's now moving to playing games and because there's a lot more of a meaningful connection, There's always the talk of how social media is very like fake. People are putting on the best show of themselves, but like when you're playing a game with someone, you're getting the real them.
There's no political views to hide behind. I mean, if you look at Facebook, it's just riddled with people complaining about something or talking about their political beliefs or something that they deem to be undesirable or so, you know what I'm saying? Something like that.
Right.
I mean, so
like,
negative most of the time.
Yeah, like it's people's opinions that you may not have really wanted to like oh, I kind of like them, or they're my coworker or something like that, but I don't want to like have them talking like to me when I'm not at work, you know? And I think that's why I think gaming is a lot more of a, like, personally, I believe it's a better social media.
So do I.
Just because you get like the genuine conversation, like you're actually like you're not physically there, but you actually get to talk with them.
Yeah, you get to know them.
When you're playing Fortnite, topics come up where you're like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened today, and you can actually talk about it with people, get like a conversation, as opposed to writing a post and then waiting for people to talk about it like an hour later, and you're like, it's just like you get that natural conversation, and I think that's actually why I believe that gaming is actually becoming a better social platform.
Oh man, I love the social aspect. Like I know I brought it up in another podcast, but in my school, it was either that you were like involved in doing some terrible things outside of school, or you did video games. And I fell in the category of doing video games, and I socialized through video games. And I had many LAN parties because LAN parties were cool back in the day. You know, that's the only thing you could do to play with massive amounts of people in your house. Like if we want to play Nazi zombies, we would do a LAN party, and we would just go at it for days. I almost said days. Jeez, oh man, that's
gaming disorder.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, no, hour. We would go for hours when we wake up and play again, and it was just fun. Like we would socialize that way, and we became really good friends by just playing games together, man. And that was my social out. Like I loved doing that. Like I didn't have to go out and drink or anything like that. I just had fun talking to my friends.
We can also even go a step further and say that how we became friends is that we met playing video games. Like a lot of people think that like, oh, you're playing with strangers online, that you may, you know, I mean, obviously we may be a rare case, we may be a common occurrence, you know. Everyone has like their own experience when playing games, but I know that everyone seems to have like an online gamer friend that, you know, jumps into the lobby every now and then, and they're like, oh my God, you know, Pescador. Because like, you know, Pescador became that friend to, you know, my friend group of playing games, and I jumped in and played with you and your friends sometimes too. So like it was that thing where you're like, I feel like the internet has like a lot to offer beyond just what people see.
Not just the internet. I mean, gaming as a whole. I mean, I think that society in general, if they don't game, they don't see it as what it is, because they don't. In my opinion, it's the top-down syndrome. So what I'm saying is, like, say if you were a manager and you never saw what happened on the shop floor of any industry, you would always think of one way up here. You would never see what it is down on the ground. So then when you make assumptions, you make assumptions that you only think that are actually there. You don't
and
really
you base it on
know.
that one time, from that one thing that somebody said, or like the one time you were in the store, you saw something happen, and you're like, well, that must happen all the time.
Yeah,
like,
it must be a common occurrence.
You know, gaming used to be like a single player thing where like, it was you either played it yourself or someone sat next to you on the couch and played with you. There was the online thing wasn't, you know, it's pretty recent. And I think that a lot of people are stuck into that single player thing where like, oh, you sit there and you play by yourself. You don't play with anybody else. You're just sitting there by yourself playing games. And I think that's that's not really true anymore. People play for the single player experience every now and then, but it's not, I think, people's main go-to anymore.
No, I think that society needs to really, I guess people as a whole need to, instead of assuming things, they need to really figure out themselves and go and actually immerse themselves in whatever, you know, they deem to be dangerous. I wouldn't say like go out and go into like something really that puts yourself in danger, but I'm saying like something that might be perceived as bad. Maybe go check it out for yourself and make your assumption, or make your best educated guess once you see it as in a whole. So
right, I agree. Yeah, see both sides of the coin before, you know, you decide to flip it, I guess.
That's a good point.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Rad Gaming Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever else you listen to podcasts. We release a new episode every Wednesday and Friday. And as always, stay rad, comrades.